Good evening, folks. This is Bill from Lesson Picks, and I don't usually go live this late. I don't know, it's only 8 on the West Coast, but we got a question on the Lesson Picks users group that I thought I'd answer directly. And if I do it live, I can get questions and feedback and stuff like that. So I am going to try and do that. I am going to we get to what they asked, and I will read it off to you. If you're there, tell me that you can hear me okay. I will get to this. So let's see. Lesson Picks users earlier tonight. Rhiannon Curry says, has anybody used grid books to make a communication flip book? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around binding the books together at the top. Do you add a row of blank squares? Do you cut your page taller than the book margins? And then Jessica Smith, thank you, Jessica. You guys could actually see this. That would be helpful. Jessica wrote what she did when she made her books. And I said, I've been looking at this. Let me make you a video. And I was going to make a video and publish it, but I decided to go ahead and just walk you through how to do this. So I don't see any comments yet. Rhiannon, if you're there, let me know. I'm going to take this video. I think if I can figure out how to do this, I want to post a link to this video in that article. Don't need to hear myself speak. And give me a sec. And let me send this to Rhiannon so she'll see it. All right. So I'll add more comments about that in a minute. All right. So the question here is that we want to create a grid book, a flip book, which I assume she means like a core and fringe book, and wants to bind it at the top probably so that there are tabs on the fringe that overlay the core. So I went through and I just decided, well, let me start this in the grid books and see kind of what I would come up with and what it would look like. And my first attempt, let me make sure this is the first attempt, said, well, I want to put the fringe at the top. And so I started with this one. So I started with my core right here with nothing in it. And I copied on all my core. I copied these from another existing book. And then I added an art fringe here. And I added a blocks fringe here. This is what I started with, right? So I had a core area that I put the core on. I left the fringe area blank. To do this big area, all I did was I dragged. So this is the area I had for the fringe. I simply dragged this big, and I double clicked and typed in the text that I wanted, and I just made it gray just so that it would look decent. So this was my first attempt, and I understood kind of what she meant, because when you actually create this as it is by default, the tabs are going to be down at the bottom, and so that's why I created, if you look here, a third row where I put in the text for each tab, and this let me make tabs wherever I wanted. You can actually, if you want to, you can have them overlap so that like art would be here and then blocks would be there. They overlap a little bit. So you have some control. You could put, if you wanted to put like art as a symbol in here, you could do that, right? Drag that here and you'd actually get that as a symbol. You could change the background color, but this is making your own tabs at the top and then creating the core board and just cutting this out at an angle. And on like the blocks page, you would cut this out over, down, up, and you'd make your own tabs for these. And that was my first attempt. Let me show you what that looks like in the PDF when you're done. It looks like this, right? So here's your first page. It's got a fringe area. Your second page has it's got a blank core area. You're going to cut this over, up, and over. On this one, you're going to cut this over, down, over, and up. And you're going to make your core and fringe that way. And I thought, well, that kind of works. It's kind of what I would do It uses the core and fringe areas the way we think about them. And then I saw probably what the problem she was asking about was, which is there's not a lot of room at the top for binding. So there's a couple ways you can solve this. First, if you're using spiral binding, so things that look like this, it'll work just fine. You'll absolutely have plenty of room. So if you've got one of these at your location, or if you can get access to them, this is an easy answer, and you don't have to do anything. You're done. You've got this exactly the way they are. But if you want to use 3-hole punch or spiral or other kinds of binding here that need more room, and you want to add like an inch there are several different ways you can go about doing this. Okay. So let me show you kind of 2 others that I came up with right off the bat. So one is real simple if you've already got this set up. Okay, so if you've already got this set up, and all you really want to do is add some extra space at the top here. It's kind of an easy way to do that. You can go into the grid books here, and when you go to create your book, you can simply turn on the page titles. So I'm going to create exactly the same book with the page titles turned on. And you'll see that it left space at the top, but put the word core there. And on the other pages, it's going to say art, and it's going to say blocks. But you might not want that, right? You might want that blank. You can absolutely just go in here and quickly say, you know what, for this one, I want, because we're using our own tab here, right? So in blocks, we've got this, in art, we've got this image. Because we're making our own tabs, these tabs here don't really matter. So we can always go in, just double click on this and get rid of the text in the title. And that's a nice way to cheat. It's a really nice way to very quickly add an inch or so at the top. These titles are handy for us as we're organizing the pages, but they're not needed. You can change tabs just by clicking on the area here. And when you create the book with the page titles, it will leave the space at the top and not put any text there. And it's kind of exactly what she was asking for, right? So that would look like this. I've got my core here. I've got my area for my fringe, and all of these other fringes with the texts are spaced down. Now, you'll notice that this has the extra squares here. That's because I didn't turn off hide unused squares. So let's go back to the grid books and fix that. So we'll say create books. We'll say hide the unused cells. Everything else is kind of good. Let's use rounded corners just so they kind of look more like tabs. And I think we're going to be good. We'll be probably the best we can do in this approach. So here's my PDF file. That's what it looks like. And there's my fringe, and there's my tab to cut out and have blocks. I have enough room at the top for a 3-ring binder, about an inch. That should be plenty. And I think that would do exactly what she's wanting. There's another approach to do this, and I actually kind of like it better. It took me a minute to think about it, but just thought I'd go ahead and show it to you. Instead of using the core and fringe area like you'd expect, we can lay this out a little bit differently. So I'll go back into grid books, and I'm going to load up a different layout just to save us time. And this one is called, I just called it use tabs. And this is a little bit different. Instead of making our own tabs, we're going to use the tabs that it comes with, right? So here's my core page right here. It's got the same exact core, the same fringe area at the top. By the way, to make the fringe area, when I made this page, I said I need 3 rows at the top and 5 rows in the middle. So that's how I did the spacing. And once again, if you missed it in the beginning, you can resize this thing to cover that whole area, and then just set the text to gray to make it look like this. So this is what my core would look like. For these other ones, I just put the fringe at the bottom. I just put the fringe at the bottom. You'll see I've got the same exact layout, top and bottom. And then Allie Binka, my daughter, hi Rihanna, I'm glad you're here, and I hope this answers your question. Let me know if it does. Allie suggested moving core to the end here so that the tabs would start on the left. But this one's a little bit easier. So when you look at art, right? There's my fringe. I've still left 3 spaces so that I have room for the tabs. But when I generate this one, right? I want tabs around at the bottom. I do not want a page title. I'm going to make just thin. You now have kind of, you can do any fonts you want, anything you want here. I want to hide the unused cells. And my corners can be sharp or rounded. It doesn't matter anymore because I'm using the tabs from here. When I create this one, my PDF now looks like this. So here's my core area. And I have as much room as I want to bind this because I got plenty of room up here at the top on the core page, right? And on the fringe pages, I'm just going to cut this wherever I want, as high as I want, as long as I'm consistent and I don't use up more than this amount of space, it's going to be just fine. And you get pretty nice rounded tabs. So hopefully this is another good option. So if you want to put images in the tabs, I would suggest you doing the first approach. If you want to use our tabs, I would suggest this approach. Then you would just cut straight across here at whatever height you wanted, cut around this to make your pretty little tabs, and put them over this one. The only downside there is this tab for the word core, and I honestly don't know a way to get rid of that except just cutting it off. So I hope this works. One of the nice things about this is that unlike the main Lesson Picks wizard, you'll notice that every time I wanted to make a change, I was either just hitting the back button or going back into grid books, and it remembers the last thing that I did, and I'm not recoloring everything, and I'm not starting from scratch. While I have you here, I guess I will start one thing. I'll show you how I got these pictures in here real quick, because I didn't like start looking all these up. I started from the sharing center and I totally cheated. So I thought I would just show how I cheated. I'm going to go ahead and start a new layout. I want a top with 3 rows. I want 5 by 10, and that's 3 by 10. And I'm going to just call this core. So this is what I'm starting with, right? And then I wanted to populate this from an existing material. So I guess there's a couple ways I could do this easily. One is just get rid of the top for a second. So now I've got what looks a little bit stretched, but we're going to fix it in a minute. And then I marked as one of my favorites, I went and found a material called core board. And these are all the pictures that were in the core board. And the one that I found, here, I'll show it to you, was this one from Andrea Whipple. And so I found it. This way I don't have to find all those pictures. I load them over here. Now I add my top with my 3 rows. So now I've got all of these. Now I need to color code them. I have to do that the first time. It'll remember it later. But if I remember, this was yellow. Then all my verbs are green, right? So I'd go in here and I'd say I want this to be yellow. Maybe with like a dark yellow border, and I update that. And then I'll drag this down, but I'll hold Alt. And when I hold Alt, as it says on the bottom, it's just going to drag the style. So now they're all yellow. I want all these verbs right here to be green. So I'll make them green with like a nice dark green border. Same thing, all my verbs are green. And I just went in and I colored them all this way. And then when I went to do my my fringe, when I went to do the fringe page, I simply duplicated the page. Now I have a separate copy here, and I actually cheated again. I went and found an Art Center fringe and loaded them all in. That's all I did to get them. So I put those in my favorites before I started this. So here's the Art Center fringe and the Block Center fringe that I stole. I quickly loaded them in here, and Big Tip Alley was showing people over at Closing the Gap. This is a pretty good one. If I want to delete all these and clear them, right, I can clear one of them like that. And then I can just copy this over like that, right? And what I did there was I'll undo that and show you again. So when I went to drag this over, right, if you look at the bottom, it says drag to resize. That'd be like that. But if I control drag, it copies that cell. So now I copied that blank cell all over it, which is a nice, easy way to do that. So that was an easy way to quickly get my core and my fringe in there. I mean, I could finish coloring these, but I don't think I'm going to. I might make these pink just real quick. Just to remind you that when you're painting, you hold down the Alt key. That. So once you get this down, there's a lot of power in this. You can certainly make it work the way you want. I did think about right here under include page title, maybe giving an option just for leave room for binding, leave blank space or something. I don't know, something we could probably do. We'll see how much this is getting used and how much people are having trouble with it. Rhiannon, I'm not surprised you had some issues with this. That it is, I'm certainly it's frustrating when you can't figure out how to get that space. I guess the biggest things are, yes, you could have left a row. Yes, you could have made it one big cell. Yes, when you create the book, you can say hide that cell and it wouldn't show you a box there, all of which give you more options as well. So I hope this works. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll check this video comments after I finish posting it. And if you have any more questions, please post them in the LessonPix users group. That's a great place to do it on Facebook, or email us at support@lessonpix.com. Bye.